Okay, thank you, Anna, for your introduction. Good morning, or good afternoon rather. I am Catherine Crowley, and I'll be describing the new Sourcing and Supplier Management CC, which is one of the 5 released by IVI last week. First, I'll outline the need for the development of SSM, then I'll step through the key changes, and then I will describe the CC's usefulness to you. So first, why do we need SSM? Digital transformation has been regarded as critical to an organization's competitiveness. An MIT Sloan Management Review and Capgemini survey found that respondents overwhelmingly believed that failure to effectively conduct a digital transformation would harm their company's ability to compete. Research shows that for several reasons, SSM is key in digital transformation. A 2016 global outsourcing survey by Deloitte showed that 72% of respondents outsourced elements of their IT function. That's an increase of 31% since 2014, and continued growth in outsourcing is expected into the future, with cloud computing being the highest driver at nearly 70%. Due to the higher dependency on external partners, there is an increase in both the potential opportunities and in the risks involved. For example, there may be an opportunity to collaborate for innovation. Conversely, there may be a risk for continuity and integrity of supply. All this, together with the requirement for new digital skills and disruptive technologies required by digital, make the role of sourcing increasingly strategic. One approach to address digital transformation is to develop and mature sourcing and supplier management capability in the organization. The IT-CMF framework was developed in this iteration to address SSM in the digital business context. Prior to development of SSM, the framework had 2 CCs covering this area of IT management. A separate sourcing SRC CC and a supplier management SUM CC. This slide highlights the previous CCs and their position in the framework. Both digital transformation and member feedback were drivers for this refresh. IVI research had determined that SSM was key in digital transformation. We listened to our members, and they were saying that the current CCs of sourcing and supplier management were artificially separated. It was unrealistic to expect that different people would be dealing with sourcing a supplier and then managing them. There was also some confusion as to what was covered in what CC. Because of this separation, there were things falling between 2 stools. For instance, supplier qualification, which was not adequately addressed in either SRC or SUM. Also, there was a need for more procurement-specific activities and to use more operations terminology, using terms such as RFI and RFQ. So the old SRC and SUM are now consolidated, together with learning from our digital literature review, into a new SSM CC. And this slide highlights the current SSM CC and its position in the framework under Managing IT like a Business macro capability. So we have 3 inputs into the new SSM CC. The existing CCs of SRC and SUM, the digital literature review, and feedback from our members. Each of the fresh CCs has a toolkit of artifacts. Some of you will be aware of what we provide for each CC, but for those who are not, these are the questionnaire, where partners and assessors can use the questionnaire to assess where you are and where you would want to be and devise a plan to get there. The master deck to introduce the critical capability. Comms which are typical practices across 5 maturity levels. And for those already aware of the IT-CMF artifacts, you'll note the addition of a position paper, which gives an overview of the topic based on the literature review. Now to outline what has changed. Firstly, looking at changes in the digital business environment which impact on SSM. The literature review revealed 5 key impacts on sourcing and supplier management arising in a digital business environment. And these present both challenges and opportunities for the organization. And these are a value mindset culture, sourcing becoming more strategic, focus on talent and innovation, relationships, and flexibility. So looking at these in more detail, the need for a value mindset culture. Traditional supply chains are giving way to supply ecosystems, and these bring with them new risks as well as new requirements for collaboration, negotiation, and governance. There are new sourcing models, and therefore this requires a shift in organizational culture and managerial perspectives. For example, organizations need to assess their attitude towards sharing critical knowledge. Sourcing contracts become more complex with additional factors to address. Sourcing is also becoming more strategic. The requirement for new skills and disruptive technologies makes the role of sourcing increasingly strategic. Changing sourcing needs and opportunities driven by complexity and diversity of technologies. Managing more complex sourcing decision-making, contracting and evaluation, and reflecting new sourcing models. There's also an opportunity for partnership, for greater innovation, and to leverage business opportunities, and to access expertise for cross-fertilization of skills and knowledge. This prompts a focus on talent and innovation. While traditionally the main reason to outsource was cost saving, in the new digital era it's increasingly driven by a search for talent and to close digital gaps or to acquire new digital services or development capabilities. There is an increased demand for innovation and transformation through outsourcing engagements. Despite the greater reliance on technology, relationships matter, and in outsourcing the single best performance improver was the quality of the relationship between the client and the supplier. Flexibility is also key. The outsourcing landscape is constantly changing, so retaining flexibility to change direction is important, and building a strategic supplier management and governance capability is necessary to ensure control without limiting flexibility and innovation opportunities. So taking all these environmental factors, the feedback from our members, and the content from the existing CCs, we developed the SSM structure, which I'll now outline to you. First, the SSM definition. Sourcing and supplier management capability is the ability to evaluate, select, integrate, and manage IT suppliers in line with defined sourcing and supplier management strategies. The model has 4 categories and 12 capability building blocks. The categories or areas that need capability building arise from the digital business transformation on the recognized backbone of elements of sourcing and supplier management, which are A, sourcing strategy, B, supplier contracting and classification, C, supplier integration and engagement, and D, supplier operations management. These four elements have been derived from the outsourcing body, professional body of knowledge, ESCM standards, Institute of Supply Management guidance, and the already existing critical capabilities highlighted earlier of sourcing and supplier management. Looking at the CBB, the first two categories are sourcing strategy, which is comprised of three capability blocks: strategy alignment, objective and scoping, sourcing decision. Second category is supplier contracting classification, which is CBBs, supplier identification and selection, and contract preparation and closing. The next category is category C, supplier integration and engagement. This is 4 CBBs: supplier relationships, supplier communication and governance, supplier qualification, and service transition. The final category is D, supplier operations management, and this is the operations category which has been added addressing member feedback. This category has 3 CBBs: performance management and contract compliance, continuity of supply, supplier innovation management. Each CBB has a description and an associated maturity progression through 5 levels of maturity, going from 1 to 5. On this slide, we see 2 CBB descriptions. These 2 CBBs have been added to better address procurement activities. Supplier identification and selection CBB includes supplier ranking and rating, and supplier qualification CBB addresses supplier qualification and disqualification. Digital is usually reflected in higher maturity levels, and here we see in the innovation capability at level 4 in question 10, we have the contract preparation consistently having to strike a balance between incentivizing innovation by the supplier and ensuring the cost-effective product service and service delivery. Looking at supplier relations at question 12 in our questionnaire, you may be at a level 2 where you have a supplier engagement model in place for a limited number of suppliers, primarily focused in relation to cost, and want to move to a level 4 where you have a comprehensive supplier engagement model covering all appropriate suppliers and tailored towards meeting both parties' needs in a sustainable way. Here we can look at the supplier relationship POMs at a lower level for some guidance on what to do in maturity improvement here. Moving from a level 2, where you define the engagement based on achieving on-time delivery and the lowest possible price, to a level 4, where you would define supplier engagement to focus on encouraging knowledge sharing and collaboration. Also from a level 2, where you're looking at defining the supplier engagement model at an operational level, to level 4, where you're collating relationship feedback across the supply base and looking at a 360-degree review, aligning objectives and incentivizing high supplier participation. Once again, we're looking here at question 22. You might be looking at moving from a level 2 to a level 3 in your innovation management, and looking at POMs, you'll find direction here on moving from level 2 to level 3. It's not always a higher level. We're not always looking to go to level 5. Okay, so we have shown you a sample of the questions and related POMs can guide you to improve your maturity. That's showing usefulness of the material at a low granular level. What this slide shows is a summary report drawing from the data you run when you run the questionnaire as part of an assessment of a larger group. The assessment process allows you to gather the wisdom of the crowd to determine which parts of this critical capability need to be improved in maturity as a priority. The grey shaded area in the top right-hand quadrant shows the capability building blocks that have the largest gap between where they currently are and where they should be, as judged by respondents to be the most important things to improve right now. So if SSM is an area you'd like to get better at, then the assessment and this graph will point you in the right direction. So what are the benefits? What does SSM help you to do? SSM has 4 categories and each help you build your capability in a particular way. Category A, establishing a sourcing strategy that is aligned with more strategic role played by sourcing in a digital context. This reflects issues such as evolution and applicability of different sourcing models, viability of sourcing options to address in-house skills gaps, and to co-innovate with partner through a network of relationships with sourcing partners. Category B covers establishing effective criteria for classifying suppliers and an approach to addressing the growing complexity of the sourcing contracts, with covering issues such as corporate social responsibility, building agility and flexibility into contracts. Category C covers engaging and integrating with your suppliers, fostering mutually beneficial and enduring relationships built on trust, openness, and accountability. And the final category, Category D, Supplier Operations Management, focuses on managing ongoing supplier operations, being aware of security and continuity of supplier risks, and the potential of outside-in innovation through a culture of collaboration with your suppliers. Here we see some examples of digital challenges reported by our members and the potential response guided by SSM artifacts. For instance, a lack of internal digital expertise can be responded to by contracting in expertise as required, for example, using micro contracts. And the most relevant SSM CBB to guide you in this response is CBB C1, which is Supplier Relations. The need to keep up with a changing business environment can be answered by co-innovation with supplier or supply chain or ecosystem. At a lower level, you may look to developing an ecosystem. And the most relevant CBB to guide you in this response is the Objectives and Scoping CBB. So I hope that I've given you a good overview of the new SSM CC. SSM provides an assessment of the organization's maturity in facing key challenges and practical guidance on maturing the capability to be well positioned in optimizing opportunities for IT, sourcing and supplier management in the era of digital transformation. So I'll hand you over now to Anna.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Catherine. I think that was very interesting. I'm still understanding new things about managing IT, even after 6 years here. And for me, one of the key parts that I would pull out of this would be the area of digital impact. There's a lot of learning for me there, and certainly it's great to see that those digital impacts have influenced the development of SSM so that they'll help us address the issues that are brought to the fore there. So I hope you've all taken away something of value from this content presentation. I'm going to hand you over now to Paul Goddard, who is our Channel and Partner Manager with IVI Services, who will explain next steps. And continue to give us your questions both privately and in the chat window, and we'll address them right after Paul's presentation in the Q&A session. Over to you, Paul.
Great stuff. Thanks, Anna. Thanks for that presentation as well, Catherine. Well, everybody, you've heard a little bit about the assessment and what we can offer, and now what we want you to do is probably take this as the first step on your journey forward. So there are a number of things that you can do. The simplest and most easy thing that you can do is go to www.ivi.ie, which is our website, and there you'll be able to see the assessments that we offer. You'll be able to learn more about the framework. If you're a member or a partner, you'll be able to log into our portal and actually begin to go through the body of knowledge around the critical capabilities, especially SSM. If you have any particular questions you'd like me to take you through what the next steps would be in running your own assessment, or just an initial conversation to go in a little bit more depth, there are contact details up there right now. I'm not going to go through them letter by letter, but if it's a sort of generic question, you can go to Anna, who would be our community manager. If you're part of a consultancy organization or somebody would like to run assessments on organizations other than yourself, you can come to me, channel manager. Or if you would like to know more about running a sourcing assessment upon yourself, we can help that, and you can reach out to our head of customer success, will be my colleague, Mark Stamper. If you're not already part of our community, we would love you to join the community. It's how we regularly stay up to, or keep you up to date with things that are changing. And it's a place for you to learn, to contribute, and to see how other users actually get benefit from this day-to-day basis. So if you go to LinkedIn and click on IVI or type in search for IVI Global Community, then you'll be able to get to that. And finally, we're going to be running another webinar series in just a few weeks, I think.
2 weeks?
2 weeks, yes. So on Tuesday the 20th, we'll be running Introduction to IT-CMF, and on Thursday the 22nd, we will